Well, we wanted to talk for a few minutes about the book. I don't know if you want Charlotte to sit in on this or not, or that's up to you.
Probably best if you went up after me or something. Sorry.
Alright.
She's got some closer.
Okay.
Well, I guess I'll start it out. I guess I was kind of flabbergasted to the point that I really don't know what to say. So I'm going to let the Bible do the talking here. I'm going to just review a few things that I saw in the book, and then we'll look up some scriptures.
So you read the book?
Well,
You read the book?
I read the book, yeah.
Okay.
This is where this material that I'm going to bring up now came out of there.
Did you read the book
Yep.
too? Okay.
On several occasions, I noticed words like damn, sack of SH, blank blank, gut-wrenching lust, real bastards. I thought now maybe it'd be appropriate if we opened up our Bibles and looked at Ephesians 4:29. Notice it says, let a rotten saying not proceed out of your mouth, but whatever saying is good for building up as the need may be, that it may impart what is favorable to the hearers. So that pretty strong counsel on some of those words there. But then in looking through the book, I found various sexual overtones that were highlighted. Some erotic lessons he spoke of, and his hand sought the soft flesh of her breasts. God, how he wanted her, as they joined together as one soul. And then once she made the comment to have him make passionate love to her. And on page 160 there was a graphic sexual act pictured, and on 206 there was another sexual contact suggested. So I thought maybe we could read Philippians 4:8. Brother McClure, would you like to read that one?
Sure. Finally, brothers, whatever things are true, whatever things are of serious concern, whatever things are righteous, whatever things are chaste, whatever things are lovable, whatever things are well spoken of, whatever virtue there is and whatever praiseworthy thing there is, continue considering these things.
Okay. Did you notice the alluding to being chaste, the thought in that scripture?
And also it talks about praiseworthy things, considering things of that nature. I think it's well spoken of.
Now, I thought we might look at Matthew 15:18 too. And I think, writing it down would be about the same as saying something. Who would like to read that one?
I'll read that one. It says, however, the things proceeding out of the mouth come out of the heart, and those things defile a man.
So can you see how that would apply to some of the things here? Then, as I went on, I found different suggestions of immorality or adultery, and one that especially caught my eye was on pages 267 and 270 where they were viewing one another from behind when they were riding horses, and they got kind of an erotic feeling out of it?
Oh, come on, Russ, I mean,
Well, let's read what Jesus said about something like that. Matthew 5:28. Would you like to read that one, Brother Clare?
Sure. Matthew 5:28 says, "But I say to you that everyone that keeps on looking at a woman so as to have a passion for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart."
but don't they have to be married to someone else for it to be adultery? I always understood that they have to be married to someone else for it to be adultery.
That's possible.
In this account, it is. He's using this as an example of things even single people would want to keep away from, is what he's doing. But the scripture applies definitely to a married person here committing adultery in his heart. But at the same time, it would apply to single people in controlling their passions.
But in talking about a husband or a wife, I mean, even after 24 years, Mike and I look at each other and have a passion for one another.
And that's proper, because you're not committing adultery.
Okay, well then let's back up a little bit. Let me ask you guys something. Someone is stranded on a deserted island. There's no one else around to marry them. As soon as that first act is committed, they commit to one another, and in Jehovah's eyes, they're married.
Is that true? Is that a true statement, Jim? If you're on a deserted island, in this story, you both brothers have read it.
There's no
They're
one there
on
to
a
marry
deserted
them.
island. There's no one there to marry them. They
They
fall
commit
in
to one
love.
another.
They commit to one another. Is it fornication?
Okay, let's
No, yes or no. Is it fornication, Jim?
Yes.
Why? Because they don't have a priest or an elder to marry them, but they've
No.
made a commitment to themselves.
No.
Okay?
The book tells us why.
Okay, show me.
Kim's book tells us why. When they got back
Mm-hmm.
and were rescued, they did not consider themselves married.
They had problems that they had to work out.
They did not consider themselves married.
Okay?
This is more of a principle here.
But that's right. But I'm looking at it from what the book said. That when they got back
Were they in Texas or someplace?
Wherever they were, they didn't have
From
She
Texas and she was
lived
from
in Texas and he
California.
lived in LA.
but they didn't consider themselves married when they got back.
Okay?
Anyway, I thought it was a good point what Jesus said, you know, just looking at people. He
Well-
carries it further. I mean, Jesus carried it further than what we, you or I would actually, you know, we would depend on somebody saying something or some kind of an act committed.
Mm-hmm.
Here, Jesus, just looking, you know.
Well, my intent when I wrote it was they had made a commitment to one another on the island. Yes, they had a few problems to work out, especially, you know, living in totally different parts of the country. But I mean, they never dated anyone else. They were committed to one another. They had to work through these problems. They were in love, even though they didn't want to admit it to themselves.
Well, you have some.
I did not have the intent that they committed immorality or adultery or fornication. Because to me, on the island, they had made
The
a commitment.
scripture doesn't say they did either. They said they have it in their heart. Jesus said they have it just by looking with a passion. They have it in their heart.
But, I mean, when, like I said though, even now after 23 years, Mike and I can look at each other. I guess I don't understand where you're coming from, because
The guy's obviously in love with the woman in the book.
and how is this different from like the Shulamite maiden? I mean, when you guys read that, that's a pretty graphic.
What's the intent of that?
But what took place with the Shulamite maiden?
Well, it was honorable in that,
It was
in that
honorable.
sense.
That's right. She did not give in to the fleshly desires, where the book allows him to give in to fleshly desires.
But didn't he have a passion for her in his heart?
And he wanted to marry her, but he did not have sexual relations with her. According to the account in the Shulamite Maiden, she stood true to what she felt was right, and you know, even in the book, from what I get out of it, even after they left the island, they had sexual relations before they were married. So it wasn't just the island setting we're looking at after the island setting. There's no record of them being married even when they got back on, if I'm not...
Because that ends up being the climax of the book, when he steps out of the truck.
They get married at the end.
You don't remember that? Where they
I
get
remember
married
them.
at
I remember
the end
them.
of the book?
I remember them being married at the end of the book, but I also remember of them sometime before that referring to them spending a weekend together or something.
But there's no mention of sexual relations in that weekend.
I'd have to read it again. It leads you to believe that. When I read it, it led you. If I'm thinking of the right instance, you know, I read the book through once. I can't remember every page of it, but I remember.
Well,
Did you go over to the store and buy the book?
I bought the book.
Which store?
Barnes and Noble.
okay. Well, let me ask you, did you, well, never mind.
Well, this is just a principle that I interjected in here. You know,
That's
a person
that's fine.
could be a, you know, as you say, it may be different than how I view it, but it's a principle that Jesus gives us. But then, finally, I thought we should look at 1 Corinthians 15:33, and I guess we don't really have to read it, but we all know what it is. Simply stated, it says, "Do not be misled. Bad associations spoil useful habits." And Brother McClure and myself, for years and years and years, we stood on the platform and talked to the congregation about staying away from reading material like this and watching it on television, maybe on the internet or on the computers, or reading the true romance novels, you know, that have that kind of stuff. That's the stuff that we've counseled for years that people shouldn't do.
But
So-
not all romance novels are bad.
Pardon?
Not all romance novels are bad, though.
Not all what?
Romance novels are bad.
Well, perhaps not all of them, but some of them surely are.
Okay.
Anyway, they're included in the magazines and the stuff we get from the society, you know, they mention them same things. We should avoid. So I summed it up this way, that this is the kind of book that the society continues to warn us about, to avoid reading, and the story is unfit for a Christian to read. It's bad association. That's the way I view it. It's as bad association. It could lead to some serious troubles for other young girls or something like that. That, you know, might look at that and say, well, Sister wrote that, it must be all right, you know. And it really could cause a serious problem.
But see, then we're getting back here to the intent. My intent was not to create these sexual fantasies or to bring up these feelings in person. To be honest, brothers, I wrote an adventure about two people who were stranded on this island. I didn't even classify it as a romance. The publisher did. My intent was an adventure. And I tried to make it realistic. I mean, let's be honest. If you're a single person stuck on a deserted island with no hope of rescue.
I don't think that a Christian should wrote something like that personally.
But now we're getting into personal opinion though.
Well,
Okay.
I'm basing my opinion on what I've learned from studying the Bible for many, many years. There's many other things that a Christian could do that would be based on an opinion too, that could be good or bad.
Well, I've seen a few things brothers have said and done that offended me that were in poor taste too, but I keep it to myself.
But this book, you see, is out there. The damage is done. And I don't, what do you think you might be able to do about it?
Right now, I can't do anything because I'm under contract with the publisher for the rest of the year.
For a year?
For a year.
When did that start?
I don't know, I'd have to pull out my contract and look at
About?
it.
Yeah, maybe about a couple months ago, a month?
I think November, I think
Something like that.
it's up in November.
Well, let's look at one other scripture that helps us to see the balance of it. Go to Ephesians chapter 5, verses 3 and 4. This is a scripture that's used many times, Ephesians 5, 3 and 4.
5, 3, and 4?
It says, "Let fornication and uncleanness of every sort or greediness not even be mentioned among you, just as befits holy people. Neither shameful conduct, nor foolish talking, nor obscene jesting, things which are not becoming, but rather the giving of thanks." You see, the Bible even encourages us not to even discuss things of fornication or uncleanness, which would refer to
Swearing by advertise? Joking, making Viagra jokes, Jim?
that could be.
Okay.
I could be wrong in that. But at the same time, what are we talking about? Are we writing it down? Are we publishing it?
But when you walk around with it on, it's the same thing. It's public, it's out there. The friends have seen it.
Okay.
It's out there. The friends know it's there.
Mm-hmm.
The friends talked about it.
This scripture in the context of obscenities. I feel I did not use any obscenities in my book because an obscenity is worldly slang or swear words per se that bring up sexual, what's the word? Several words that would make the person,
Mention or think about sex right off the bat. That's what an obscenity is.
the F word, that's an obscenity. There's several others I can think of that are obscenities. You know, I did not use any obscenities.
Okay, then,
So the words that are used in the context of the book are within the context of the words being used, like hell, damn. And quite honestly, yeah, they are down in writing, but it's no worse than I've heard elders say. In fact, when I first moved here, I worked in service with an elder, and he said, all the friends do is bitch and complain. That was between me. I didn't take offense because, you know what? We all say those words. You know, if you sit here and say that you don't say them, I gotta question them. You know what I mean, Jim?
I
mean,
agree.
let's be honest.
And
let's
nobody's
be
arguing with
men.
that. But the question about it is, what we're concerned about is the publishing of it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, putting it out for public distribution. And it goes beyond that. Because of the fact it goes into the sexual conduct in a very graphic detail.
Graphic, you mean what in graphic?
The fondling of the breast and the description of it, things of that nature.
By today's standards, that's not considered graphic.
Not in the world. But it surely is in Jehovah.
We're not looking in a sense of today's standards, we're looking at our standards. So, see, that's one of the problems, that's one of the scary things out there. That's what affects every one of us, is today's standards. That's the problem that affects all of us.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sad thing about it. Even society has changed their standards over the years. Why? Because they realize they don't want that. A lot of our literature used to be done in the European standards, now it's not. Because the European standards were lower than what the society uses. Even their illustrations. But they cleaned that up, straightened that out. Because if you look at some of the older literature, the depicting of the scenes and stuff were the European standards, they realized that wasn't appropriate around the world. Because the European standards are different than here.
Mhm.
and they still are, but that's not the standard society view. Why? Because they realize the European standards are Bible standards.
Okay. So then you brothers obviously took offense to this. I can see that you took offense to this. Let me ask you a question. When you read the account of David and Bathsheba and how he continually watched her and observed, you take the same offense to that?
No, because of I just read it this morning in my Bible reading.
Okay.
It's not condoned.
No.
They were punished by Jehovah for it,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a total different context.
Okay.
I never said I condoned, any actions that worldly people do as far as, the way you guys are coming across, that I'm saying it's okay to go out there and commit fornication and immorality. I'm not condoning it, and I'm not saying that.
My biggest concern about your book, Kim, is some young sisters reading it and their heads being filled with various ideas. Well, the word is stumbling. That's what it very possibly can do, is the way I look at it. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Thank you for saying that, Patricia. Appreciate that.
I appreciate that. I never even told anybody in the Kingdom Hall that I was having a book published. I have not
I didn't
encouraged
know.
anyone to buy it. I have not talked about it in the Kingdom Hall or service.
And the only reason I'm really upset is because your name is in big print across the bottom of that book.
Mhm.
By or author. And now these kids know who you are. I mean, that was written by a
appreciate
sister. That's the point I'm trying to.
But how are they going to find out if nobody's talking about it or knows about it? How are they going to find out?
Well, let
You
me,
wait and see what letters we get on it, and I'll tell you.
Well, it has been talked about in Carpenter Service. Shiloh's talked about it in service.
Not my book,
well, about it being published.
About being published.
Oh.
About being published.
but
Well,
I haven't.
Well, you talk, let me ask you, that Thursday night you pulled me in the back room, Jim, you said that a couple of sisters complained about it. The fornication or the immorality in the language, right? Is that what you said? You said a couple of sisters complained about it, the immorality in language. Do you recall saying
I
that?
remember saying that,
Okay.
and
Who are the two sisters?
I remember, I'm not going to say who the two sisters are, but it was talked about in field service because of comments that were heard about the book. And I don't know where they got the comments.
Okay.
Because we have a few concerns about this.
Right,
Well-
I understand that, but the concern should not be where we heard about it. Because you aren't going to stop people from talking. There is a concern of, my own wife came back from the group in service and was talking with Shiloh about it, and she was concerned because somewhere they heard the comment that there was swearing and there was sex and violence in it. Sex and
Violence.
That was the comment that was said, and
But this is gossip.
I know, but what do we do as elders? If we hear gossip, we investigate before we do anything. We don't just
No,
ignore
wait a
it.
minute.
Wait a minute though.
Let me think about this. Yeah, I want to get back to the two sisters complaining because I don't quite understand with what I read in Matthew chapter 8.
Mhm.
Me too.
Is it 18?
I know what you're referring to.
Yeah, when
Matthew 18, 15, 17.
15 to 17. Yeah. No. Oh, wait a minute. I get Matthew 8. That's why I can't find it. I want to know. Yeah, 15. Moreover, if a brother commits a sin, go lay bare his fault between you and him alone, and if he listens to you, you have gained your brother.
Right.
But if he does not listen, take along with you one or two more, in order that at the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every matter may be established. If he does not listen to them, speak to the congregation. If he does not listen even to the congregation, let him leave you just as a man of the nations and as a tax collector.
If someone,
You said that a couple of sisters complained.
Mhm.
When they approached you, Jim, did they approach you too? They just approached Jim?
No, I haven't been out down there.
Okay, so when they approached you then, as a spiritual shepherd,
Mhm.
you encouraged them to apply Matthew 18. And when they came back to you, what did they say that I said?
Matthew 18 doesn't apply,
Why?
Why?
because you did not sin against those individuals.
If they took an offense to Kim writing the book, then we certainly sinned against them. They're under obligation, Jim, to come and apply Matthew 18.
We're not talking about a personal thing here. We're talking something that's public. This is publicly published. This is nothing personal. This was put out for public. How did I find out? I bought a book off a public place.
So you're saying Matthew 18 doesn't apply here, and all of those steps are sidestepped?
Doesn't apply. Matthew
Doesn't
18.
apply, wow.
So then,
Well, I don't see how it would.
so then Matthew 5 wouldn't apply then by me leaving my gift at the altar and making peace with those who have complained?
Okay, how could you make peace?
Because I could approach the person and say, look, I'm so sorry that this book offended you.
Mhm.
We didn't have the intent of offending anybody. She wrote a story about two people on an island. What would naturally take place?
Well,
They still had things that they had to get worked out, and that's part of the story, John.
I disagree about things that naturally take place.
Okay. You want to get the information, John? Okay, find the Watchtower article where it says about how Jehovah created man and woman with the natural desire to fall in love.
Mm-hmm. We're not arguing with that.
But to sit here and say that that was wrong, to write
Okay,
that, natural
83
desires,
1983 Awake, November 8th, page 16 to 18. It's under the subheading, And They Lived Happily Ever After. And it says, the subject of romance has fascinated readers throughout the ages. Of course, this is only natural since God placed in man and woman the desire to fall in love and marry. It is not surprising then that romance is an ingredient of most fiction, and this is not necessarily objectionable. Some romance novels have even attained the status of fine literature.
Mm-hmm.
okay, so
And then it gets into the intent of the writer. Well, it says, creating sexual fantasies is indeed the intent of some authors. These feelings are conjured up in the minds of the writers. They aren't real.
So in the setting of that story, being on a deserted island, they fall in love, they commit to each other. In God's eyes, they're married.
But they didn't even believe that themselves. The book doesn't lead you.
These are fictional characters, John.
Right, but
these
the
characters are
you
not
carry
real.
the fictional characters back to reality. They don't consider themselves married when they get back.
But they're worldly people. I mean,
We don't go by worldly standards.
Okay, so then you're not going to allow me to apply Matthew 5:23 in this matter to make peace with those who obviously have a problem with the book? Because you said, Jim, there was a couple of sisters who complained.
The sisters I heard the complaints from, the way it came through was talking in the car groups in service. Shiloh probably would know as well as anybody who was in that car group when they discussed the book that day. Because a couple different times it was discussed. I don't even know for sure exactly what it was, but I heard it came through. I went and got the book to read it so I could sit down with you and let you know that it bothered some people when we could talk about it. So what did I do? Rather than encourage someone to go out and read the book or buy the book, I said I'll take it upon myself to read it and know what's being talked about.
But see, what we're saying is you should have told us when they approached you and said they were offended by it, you should have asked them if they applied Matthew 18 first.
Because it seems
Okay,
like,
even if,
whenever a problem comes up, Matthew 18 gets totally put on the back
I
burner.
understand that, I understand that. But Matthew 18, well, even if you applied Matthew 18 and I read that book, it wouldn't have changed a thing.
Well, yeah, because you'd be approaching in the basis of Matthew
Right.
18, but I want to get to the two sisters, couple of sisters that complained, because you know what, Jim? To my knowledge, there's only 4 sisters that have that book.
I don't even know if these people read the book.
There you go.
I don't even know if they read it.
There
So
you
then
go.
it's
So
hearsay.
it's hearsay,
Okay,
Jim.
is it hearsay anymore when I got the book? That's why I don't bought the book. Did I
Okay,
come here without
Well,
reading the book?
why did you buy the book? Based on hearsay.
Yep.
So you don't know whether they had Deanna's book confused with Kim's or not.
So you don't know for sure if the ones talking about my book actually read it.
No, I don't know if they read it.
Okay.
And it doesn't make any difference because I went and read it. That's why I'm here. I'm not here from what they said. I'm here,
I guess
Because
you
I
don't
read it.
understand what we're trying to say. You know, as far as we know, no one is talking about my book and knows about, you know, any of this stuff
but,
unless it's hearsay and gossip.
okay, if it is hearsay and gossip, could I get on the platform and say you shouldn't talk, you shouldn't be gossiping about this book? Well, no, I can't say that. Because I read the book and it shocked me. It shocked Russ.
So you're saying it's okay for them to be gossiping
No, I'm not
about
saying
my book?
if they're talking about something, in the car group and service and
That seems very immaterial to the reason we're calling on you folks tonight.
Okay.
I read the book, or I skimmed through it. I didn't read every word, but I read quite a few of the pages.
Mhm.
And I was offended. 30 years ago I wouldn't have been. Since I turned around and changed my life. This is the stuff I lived with for 50 years, before I became witness. And it's just something about it don't seem right to me.
Okay, so let's cut through the chase here, and I understand where you guys are coming from. So, what are you saying? Since you apparently think it's a congregation matter, are we talking disciplinary action?
well, we want to know how you feel about it. That's really what we came to find out because we're concerned. We haven't done anything but take the first step to talk to you to see how you feel about it. Where you're coming from with it because we're concerned.
As far as,
Others being stumbled,
well, I'll be honest, I'm not going to promote immorality and fornication and tell these young girls, that it's okay to do that if that's what you're worried about.
well, that's really what the book is promoting. That's what we're concerned about. That's why we're concerned.
Okay, 2 people falling in love is, yeah, I see your point, Jim, but, from a story point of view, there has to be a little conflict in there. They live on opposite, ends of the earth, I guess you could say, Texas and California. So, as a story writer, you have to get through a conflict so that in the end, everything all works out happily ever after, because they do get married, have more children.
But see,
So it seems to me like we need to get back to the intent of the writer.
well,
Go ahead.
I was more concerned about some of the language that was used and some of the graphic pictures that, they wouldn't have really had to been in there to have they had this, whatever you call getting together there.
Mhm.
Some of that probably wouldn't have to have been there and you could still have a story. But the way you described some of the things, I thought that was kind of bad. I can certainly see it in a story like that, writing it, if you got to have some kind of a, theme or
Okay.
something going for you, or nobody would want to read it, you know.
Right. You have to do appeal to some readers without going overboard. So then, are you saying then that you felt that Kim went overboard?
I think she
With
did
some of the
in some of
descriptions?
her expletive or explaining what was taking place.
Yeah,
Maybe
what's to do?
making pictures almost in your
Okay.
mind of what was taking place. I think you may be, you know, a little too far with some of
Okay.
it.
But there again though, Russ, that's still your personal opinion though, right? Because, you know, someone else could read that and say, well, you know what, it's really not that offensive.
I don't know. if
Because you know what? We're not gonna tell names, but we know of two sisters that,
Well, I was gonna bring up the elder in Arizona,
well,
him and his wife, regular pioneers.
and even a couple sisters in this hall have bought the book, and we asked them, when you approached me with this, you know, we know of two sisters that bought the book, and there are two family members that have the book. And we called them and asked them if they took offense to it, even with what was described in the story. And they all said no. They did not find it offensive.
One sister told me,
Because yeah, you have to write a scene, and you have to make a some sort of mental picture, but it's not dwelled on in any length at all.
and the one sister told me, she says, well, I figured since there was no one around to marry them at that point, the first time on the island, they were married. In Jehovah's eyes, they were married. And they just needed to work out the problems and happily ever after. So she said, I didn't have a problem with it.
Which would go along with the story.
And I asked her about the swear words in there, and she says, it's no worse than I've heard everybody else use. Even elders.
We're basing what we're saying off Bible standards, not people's opinion. The other thing I'm looking at is when I read that account, if I'm remembering the book right, she got pregnant prior to their getting married, after they were back here, not on the island anymore, if I'm reading the account right.
She got pregnant on the island.
Okay,
There was no protection on the island.
okay, because I thought there was a account in the book where they got together prior to being married, even when they were back in the United States.
Yes, there was.
See, and that without question is fornication.
But see, they were already married in God's eyes.
But they weren't legally married. They could have gotten married if that was what they wanted to do.
All the points I made in my first outline that we went over here. Each time we read something, we read a scripture. And each of those things that we read, that scripture kind of pointed to the badness of it, right? And that's the point I'm trying to make. The first one's not a rotten saying come out of your mouth. Well, some of those words are kind of rotten, you know. You've got to admit it, they are. And some of these sexual overtones and so forth, well, they don't go along with the chasteness that we're supposed to exemplify. And that's what the way it struck me. They don't.
Oh, I can appreciate that.
So
I'll tell you what, one thing really bugs me. This is a pet peeve. I guess because I am a writer and I know a lot of these words, and a lot of the friends don't know the meaning of them and they're using them. And being a writer, I know these definitions. What really irritates me and is an obscenity, very bad obscenity that I've heard many brothers use, is bugger.
You know,
That's for sure.
and most people don't know the meaning of it.
most people don't know.
Yeah.
So in her book, and I'm not trying to defend it per se, but in the context that those words were used are well within the context of how the dictionary even uses the words.
I didn't make any curses against God. I didn't use any obscenities.
I guess when I started reading the book, I was surprised about how many curse type words were used. I guess that's what surprised me.
To be honest, I didn't realize I had used the word hell so much until I reread it. You know, I probably would have cut a few of those out.
Well, I guess it's done. Now what can we do about it? That's what it,
Well, you know what, I almost have to insist that I be given the opportunity to apply Matthew 5:23 through 24. Because you said there was a couple sisters that complained.
I heard it through the grapevine.
You know what, Jim?
And I heard that through the grapevine. I don't even know who they are.
Okay,
So
okay.
I just heard it through the grapevine.
But if there's a
And-
couple of sisters upset with me, you know, I have
Right.
to go make peace with my brothers and sisters.
Okay, but even if you make peace with them, it's not going to change our call tonight. Because this call has nothing to do with that.
Why?
Because
This has nothing to do with that.
you know why? Because I took that book out and I read it, rather than go by someone else's words. It's this whatever I heard. I hear stuff all the time. So rather than go by someone else's word, because it was something that was published, I got a copy of it and read it. And there are things we've all probably read or said or did that we shouldn't do. And later on you think, well, why did I do that? Sometimes it's a TV program or whatever. But you don't publicize it. You don't go beyond that. You say, okay, that's something I shouldn't have done. There was a program a while ago on apostasy that was on TV, and you think about it, that's something no one should have watched. But at first you watch it or you see it, and a number of people saw it. Why? Because they heard about it, they wanted to see what it was, may have been thinking about it for a right reason. And it comes down to, would you publicize it? Would you tell someone else to read it or watch it? No. And in a sense, I look at this like this is, would you want to keep publicizing it, or is it something you would want to say, okay, maybe that's something I should keep away from, maybe that's something that would not be good for my health spiritually or the spiritual health of my brothers?
Okay, if I said that and say, okay, you know, I probably would have done things differently. Right now, you know, I've got stuff set up that I cannot change and I'm under contract.
But we understand that.
You know, I don't talk to the friends about my book. None of my family has talked. You know,
Other
they may
than the
have come
fact
up
that
in
we've
service.
mentioned that it's, you know, it is published.
You know, the friends have asked me, you know, I heard you've got a book is it published? Yes. That's it. I drop it. You know, I'm not publicizing it to the friends.
why didn't you use a pen name?
That I was waiting for you to say
You know,
that.
that's a good question.
Wait a minute, if Kim would have used the pen name, would it have changed things?
No, it wouldn't have.
Okay, but,
Not as far as she's personally concerned, but as far as our sisters arguing about,
right, okay,
it's
okay.
okay to read it because she wrote it.
Okay, now if I used a pen name, nobody would have known I wrote it. To me, I felt hypocritical doing that.
Yeah, I can see your point.
I felt like a hypocrite.
I'm glad that you laughed when you said use the pen name. I'm glad you did, because that broke the ice right there.
To see,
Because that, you know, I do agree in the sense that, you know, the language probably wasn't necessary for making a story, but in the context that my wife used the language falls well within the definition of the dictionary when that language is used.
the only thing that would be, the little sisters that read it wouldn't know it was another sister that wrote it. And if somebody wanted
Could
to
be.
counsel them that they shouldn't read something like that,
I can understand that, and
that's where it comes from. on
there's
that.
good wisdom in that, Russ. Good wisdom in that. There again, with the fornication, we have the opinion, and we view it as that when they made that commitment to each other, they no longer had relations with anybody else. That, and even the woman in the book mentally was still tied to him, and he was obviously
Well, yeah, because he
tied
broke
to
it
her
off
too,
with his
because
previous
he broke
girlfriend.
off with another girlfriend. So in that context, personally, I don't have a problem with it, because they were committed to each other. From the time they left the island to the time they got married, they were still committed to each other. But in order to keep a story interesting and going, there had to be a conflict that obviously had to be worked out. That's the way I view it.
As far as the swearing, if you notice, it's only worse in the first couple of chapters. And the reason for that is because I was trying to come across as he was a stressed out, workaholic type of person, uptight, type A personality. Not that I'm trying to make any excuses, but if you notice later in the book, he is not using that kind of language anymore, because he's calmed down, he's mellowed. I was only trying to bring across his type of personality, what type of person he is. And to be honest, the word hell and damn, I've grown up with it my entire life. It doesn't bother me.
But it's still something we should try to control.
And I try to work on it. But you have to admit, if someone's crashing in an airplane, they're not going to be saying, "Oh my goodness."
Right, but those words are used, as you said, repeatedly. There's no question.
Okay, so you're not gonna let me approach.
I don't
like
remember.
you
I don't
said,
remember.
You don't even remember.
I don't
who they are.
remember. I heard it like a side conversation. It's got to be
Well,
months and months.
we're sorry that you brothers took offense to that. I did not let. I mean, I even had. It was even cleaned up quite a bit before it even got published, because even I had a problem with some of the ways things were originally written.
It was
I had-
written when I was inactive.
Yeah, 8 years ago or so, 8-9 years ago. Even then, I had it. So we cleaned it up, and with what was left, I felt, with the content and the intent of the writer, that in this situation, I felt that it would be proper. As adults, as a realistic setting, the whole 9 yards. And yes, some young ones might take offense to that, because Kim's name is on the book, because, like you said, his sister wrote it, and I can appreciate that. So I guess we owe you an apology, because you read it and took offense to it.
Well, I guess I'm more concerned. I view it as fornication. Just so you know that. I do view it as that. I don't know any other way to view it. And even if you would, I'm going to go right back to that point, even if you view they were married on the island, they did not view it that way when they got off the island. So there was not that connection from what I read in the book.
Well, I could see where that would be left up to interpretation. So where somebody might say, yeah, I don't see the connection here. But going through the story, you can see that the people, they try to, work situation. Like I said, you've got to have a story to keep the readers interested.
Right, I understand that.
Okay.
One of the things I recall now, even if it was a married couple, it wouldn't be very good to have the graphic description like there was a couple of times when they were having sex. If you recall something about the arms and legs being all twisted together, tangled up or something like that, as I recall reading. You recall that account?
I believe it says,
Yeah, they fell together in one tangled mass of arm and legs. Something like that.
something to it.
But they weren't having sex at that point because they were still dressed.
Oh, I don't, I took it that they were, but
Okay.
maybe they weren't.
So, see, so I think you can appreciate too that we gotta get back, you know, to the intent of the writer too. Because, you know, one person could read something one way and view it one way, and another person could read it another way and take a totally different view of it.
Yeah, I can think of a scene in another book that my mother mentioned here not too long ago. That someone read the same scene and they didn't think anything
Yeah.
of it, it was clean, and then someone else read the exact same scene and said it sounded like masturbation. So you can see how two different people can interpret. My mom thought that scene was totally innocent. It's nothing that I wrote, you know, I'm just using it as an example of something else. You know, my mom thought it was a total innocent scene, and someone else took it as the woman in the book was masturbating. So,
See, like Philippians 1:10 talks about stumbling others, and that's what we're concerned with. None of us stumble. We don't want to see anyone get stumbled. And
Well, I appreciate that because I don't want to do anything that stumbles anybody either. Would you do me a favor then, brothers? If you hear anyone else complaining about the book, would you please encourage them to apply Matthew 18?
if we will do that, but they may have legitimate complaints.
They still have to approach me on it.
Right, right.
You know what?
I understand that, but I guess
If I'm driving down a road and I see my brother committing fornication, am I obligated to apply Matthew 18? Russ, am I obligated to apply Matthew 18? If I'm driving down the road and I see my brother committing fornication, am I obligated to apply Matthew 18?
you're obligated to tell them to report it. That's
So
your
I'm
obligation.
still
In a
approaching my
sense,
brother on Matthew
Yeah.
18. You answered
Right.
correctly. I am.
You're
Because
obligated.
you're right. I'm obligated to go lay bare his sin, no matter what it is, no matter how serious it is. I'm obligated to go lay bare the
Well-
sin and give him the opportunity to approach the elders when, you know, and what I would say is, brother, you have 7 days to go and talk to brother Jim McClure. You know, I obviously see what you've done. I'm going to give you the opportunity to go and approach Jim McClure first. On the 8th day, I will call Jim McClure and say, this is what I seen. I talked to him. That's applying Matthew 18. Under any circumstances, Matthew 18 should be applied.
Right. But
Was you all alone?
Huh?
Was you all alone when you saw it?
I never seen it, but I know of another
What would I
brother
say?
that it happened to.
If you were all alone,
It would be tough.
it'd be a tough
It
situation.
would be very, very tough, and you'd probably have to know the brother really good too to be able to do something like that. But yeah, but you're still under obligation to apply Matthew 18.
and that's why, rather than listening to what anybody said, I got a copy of the book to read it for myself, to know what was going on. Because I just overheard this little bit, and a few people talking, and I just said, if you want me to find out, just find out for yourself. Because I know.
And we're going to be asked what we're doing about it, and now, having called on you and discussed it with you, we're going to be able to say where we're.
Right.
okay, just a question. You mentioned earlier you had some letters of complaints?
No, I said we may get
Oh,
some.
you may get some.
May get some.
Oh,
We may
okay.
get some.
Yeah, because I was, who
No, we have.
would
but-
write a letter and complain? I mean,
You do get letters.
Do you?
And I can't remember what it was, but just recently we got a comment, I forget what it was,
You
about
guys need
something,
anything to drink? Are you-
No, I'm fine.
Fine?
but
You fine?
I'm fine, thank you.
about someone in service brought something up. It wasn't regarding this, it was regarding something else. And the person came to us, and on that case, you know, the person's not going to come, then the elders have to handle that if it's a complaint that came out of field service, for example. Because it's not the individual, then it's way beyond that. You know, so sometimes we get comments from all different kinds of stuff, and that had nothing to do with this, but it's just, we get all kinds of comments. We hear stuff from all.
Okay, because I just wanted to make sure, because it sounded like you had received some letters
No, we haven't.
about
received-
my book. Okay.
But if, you know, the right people get a
Yeah.
hold and read it,
Well,
we're gonna get something.
You know, like I said, we know of 2 sisters that have bought the book. You know, we gave 2 to the family members, which obviously would stand to reason. We are not encouraging the friends to go and buy the book, because
I
that's...
will not do a book signing in O'Connell Falls so that
Right.
none of the friends feel obligated to show up and purchase the book. I don't know if you knew that or not, but I will not do a book signing in O'Connell Falls
in the local area here.
or Gillette or, you know, close to
Just-
where the friends live.
Just for that reason. Because we don't want the friends to feel obligated that they have to buy the book.
In fact,
because
I don't
she
even
wrote it.
tell the friends about my book signings. I don't mention
No.
it. They may see it in the paper because the bookstore puts it in the paper, but, you know, and some of the bookstores will send out stuff. But, you know,
What is your feelings when your contract runs out? What would be your feelings about it?
I
Haven't even really thought about that.
I'll
have we?
probably have to do some research. To be honest, I tried to find an article about writing fiction, and I couldn't find anything.
I can't remember anything on
A
either.
No,
few
we-
mentions
we've done
about
a lot of
science
research on
fiction,
this.
you know, but I know the same principles apply, you know, that we would want to be careful.
Well, I know if you're tied down to a contract, your hands are pretty well tied on it right now.
Yes.
I know the Society's written some strong stuff on science fiction. That I know.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Very
Yeah.
strong.
Well, I've given that talk, Choose Your Associates Wisely,
Mhm.
and it talks how bad some romance novels are.
Mhm.
But this article right here says that not necessarily all romance novels
Right,
are
and
bad.
that's
So
true.
I think we can appreciate that they're not all bad.
Right, and we're not saying they are.
Right. And I can appreciate where, you know, like I said, somebody might take offense to it. And again, if, you know, we obviously owe you brothers an apology if you had, you know, because you obviously took offense to it.
Well,
So in that sense, you know, we do apologize.
and we're concerned. You know, we are concerned because we don't want anybody stumbled or,
Right.
you know, anything. So let us mull over what we've talked about. We'll probably talk to you again sometime in the future. So we want to mull this over, okay? We need to think this over and
Yeah, there's some things that you've brought up that I hadn't thought about before. I'd like to think about
As
it.
far as what?
Well, right now, I just can't think of just what it is, but you did.
I mean, are they
we have-
objectionable
You mentioned
points
some things that
or
I hadn't thought.
like what? I mean, what?
Well, your illustration of on the island with 2 people, you know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being married in Jehovah's Eyes. Okay. Yeah, because we haven't even really thought about, you know, looking up, you know, how the society would view anything like that at that point. Because, you know, we just took it for granted, basically, I guess you could say. We took that scene for granted that, you know, when that happened in Jehovah's Eyes, they are married. At least that's...
although it doesn't affect the descriptions and the graphic language
Mhm.
of what took place, whether they were or they weren't.
Mhm.
That's my
Mhm.
so we'll see you tomorrow night.
Okay, well, you'll see me in China.
Okay.
The order is rapidly fading, for the times they are a-changing.